All right, hello and welcome to the Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, Online Sales Magazine, and Pipeliner CRM. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Gary Bergenske, who is in Maitland, Florida. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great. You doing okay today?
I'm doing wonderful. And Gary is the author of 5 books. He has a brand new book just coming out now called My Shriner's Diary. Do you want to just give us a quick insight into what this new book's about, Gary?
It's a diary or a memoir of a year's time that I spent as the top Shriner in the world, traveling through 19 different countries and helping our members and patients. It's a day-by-day account of everything we did, and it's very, very exciting to see all the things that Shriners do as volunteers.
Yeah, it's excellent. And Gary's other books have titles like Campaign to be a Better Leader, Campaign for a Better Life, Quotes for Leadership Success. So what we wanted to talk about based on the work that you have done and the experiences that you have had is about, number one, it's about believing in yourself. And the second half of that is giving back. So Gary, why are those two things kind of intertwined in your mind?
Well, I tell you, as a youngster, I think my parents really instilled in me that you could really do most anything you wanted in the world as long as you believed in yourself. And as I've gone through life, it seemed that not only have I lived that, but I've witnessed that a number of times. The more you believe in something, the better chance that it's going to come true. And in fact, will come true if you work hard enough at it. And then when you look at giving back, I've just had a lot of heartfelt experiences through the Shriners organization. Giving back to children through medical care. And as you see those things happen, I mean, you see extraordinary changes in the lives of children and their families. And it's very rewarding, and it inspires you to do more and more.
Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar with Shriners, we have a large international audience. You want to just give a couple of seconds about what Shriners is?
Right. Well, Shriners started in 1872 as a men's fraternity, and then in 1922, they started Shriners Hospitals for Children. So they're really known probably even more for their hospitals than the fraternity. They're worldwide. They've serviced children from 176 of the 196 countries. Wow. And they do it all regardless of the family's ability to pay. So it's a real humanitarian effort to help kids in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. So tell me then, Gary, okay, so self-belief, because we live in a world today where I think it's we have kind of almost two opposite ends of the scales. We have people who seem to have inordinate amount of self-belief and self-confidence based on sometimes very little. And then we have a lot of people who feel it's so lacking in self-confidence because we live in this kind of comparison culture, and everybody can see what's going on, and people kind of put themselves down because they constantly compare themselves to other people and think that they're not doing very well. So how do you get the right kind of self-belief and the right kind of centeredness in this world with such drastic contrasts?
Right. So the epitome of being able to be a real believer is to be able to believe in things that you can't prove. For instance, religion. And when you reach a point where you can believe in things in your mind that you can't really even prove is where you make great strides. And I found that so many people are instrumental as a mentor or someone who encourages someone to believe. Someone that believes in something, if they don't have any ground support to help it, they may lose faith in themselves. But if they've got those around them that really inspire them and motivate them, I mean, it's just unbelievable what you can accomplish.
And I think one of the things is that sometimes it's, I mean, you obviously have to keep doing all the things. I mean, you can't just sit there and believe in yourself, right? I mean, you have to do the action. But there does come points where maybe you're up against it. There's a lot of obstacles, and belief is the only thing that you have to really carry you through, right? I mean, you keep doing all the other things, but that belief part is almost the fuel to keep you pushing forward, right?
To keep it going, and you've got to have benchmarks as you go along. So if you got a goal of accomplishing something that you believe in, it doesn't all happen at once. It happens in segments, and each one of those segments that you reach, you become better and better. And it's not that your belief is becoming easier. It's that you're becoming better at what you're doing, and eventually you will achieve your goal.
And the giving back part is interesting because there's a temptation when you're on your own journey and you're working towards something to sort of go, well, once I get there, then I'll do the giving back,
Mhm.
right? I'll do the
Right,
giving back
right.
later. Once I'm successful, then I'll start to give back. Why is it important to give back all the way through your journey?
I think from day one, you need to have something or some form of giving back. Giving back builds your character, your integrity, and who you are. And by being a giver, and it may not be a big thing at
Hmm.
the beginning. It may be helping out at the blood bank or the food bank or helping do something with kids. But you become known then as someone who's compassionate. And when you become known as someone who's compassionate and passionate about what they're doing, you earn the respect of others. And that's how you really succeed. Once you earn the respect of others, it all begins to meld together. And I've found that those who give back and help others are paid back tenfold of what they give and what they receive back because of what the reputation and the respect that they've earned.
And I think that's an interesting point that you raised too, Gary, is because I think sometimes people think giving back, it has to be grand gestures or big
Mhm.
scale things. And that's why a lot of people put it
Right.
off till later and say, oh, well, later on, maybe I'll be able to donate
Yeah.
money but it's really, it's really giving back in small ways often that makes a big impact.
And it can be insignificant and it can be unrecognized even, but even as simple as helping one of your neighbors do something that they need some help with if they're elderly or they got young kids or something. But all those little things, I can tell you that they give me a warm feeling inside and they make me a better person. And then you get a little payback. Somebody says thank you, and boy, here you go. You want to do more and more, and it just expands from there.
Yeah, because I mean, I always think, especially nowadays, because we live in this strange world today. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of angst. There's a lot of controversy all the time. And
Mhm.
it's very easy for people to kind of sit around and argue about these big issues and get all worked up about them and everything. But if they just pull back a little and as you say, just try to do some really good things, even in their small universe, even in their family, in their neighborhood. I mean, the world would be a better place if people just
Oh,
focused a
exactly.
little bit more here instead of all focus
Yep.
anger on the big issues.
So instead of all that complaining and griping, go do something good and feel about it. And
Hmm.
I tell you, if you really think that you're having a bad day and you got a rough life, go visit one of these children's hospitals and walk
Hmm.
through there and see what these children are experiencing. See what their parents are experiencing by the pain that they're having because their child is sick. Suddenly your problems kind of diminish. It
Hmm.
catches you up with the real world and you become appreciative of who you are and what you're doing. For me, and my wife says it great to me. She says, when we go to one of the Shriners hospitals to see the kids, it's the fuel that keeps us going. It
Right.
motivates us to do more.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's such a humbling thing, and it's interesting though the point here because I heard or read this recently. It's if you're in America, right, and we had all that thing about people are like, oh, the rich are so rich and all this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of, but the reality is that if you earn, I think it's 30,000 or above in America, that puts you in the
Uh-huh.
one that puts you in the 1% of the world actually. And to your point, it's all about perspective, right? So
Right.
you may be sitting here going, "Oh, my life sucks, and I'm not doing this." But in reality, in perspective of the rest of the world, you're doing pretty darn good. And I think
Mhm.
your point is that you sometimes have to look at, put your own life in perspective, and then say, I'm actually in a fortunate position to be able to do things.
Yeah, and not only just for yourself, but to go out and to motivate other people to do
Mm-hmm.
things. I'll tell you, I found that one of the biggest or greatest compliments that somebody can give you is to ask for your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That means that they care about you, that they feel that what you have to say has some substance to it. And by building those relationships with other people on how you inspire them and motivate them to do more, and then down the road, when they come back and they thank you for helping them get to where they are. I mean, that's all about giving back in that way. That's not a monetary way. It's a giving back to people to help them become better people themselves.
And you, as you said, I mean, you've traveled the world for Shriners and all of this. And how how universal is this when you go out and you see like when people get involved? I mean, it has the same impact regardless of where you are in the world, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm glad you asked that question because in my travels to some of these very poor countries in the world, we in America and the United States, I think, become complacent and become expectant of
Hmm.
things. And when you go to some of these poor countries and you take some health care for the children there, it's extraordinarily 10, 20 times the appreciation. Because if it wasn't provided by Shriners or some other mission group, it wouldn't be provided at all. They'd never
Hmm.
get it, right? And so when you go to some of these places, you're just overwhelmed, and a mother comes up and hugs you and starts crying and says, "Thank you for helping my child." I mean, it just really touches you. So different parts of the world really are different. I think we here in the United States expect a lot. Other countries are more appreciative for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point for everybody listening. And I do think it's, and I'm originally from Ireland, and I've often said to people in the States here, I've lived here over 20 years now, is that sometimes you need to look outside, because when I hear people complaining about their lives in America and America's this, America's that, I'm like, you
Yeah,
really do need to go live
yeah.
in some other places to get a better perspective. Because I've lived through, so since I've been in America, to be honest, I've lived through three, I think it's three, maybe four recessions, at least three anyway, right?
Yep.
And I lived through recessions back in Ireland in the 80s and stuff, right? The three recessions I lived through in America, they weren't recessions, not
No.
recessions as they happen in the rest of the world. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think perspective is such a wonderful
Right.
thing. I mean,
Go
when
go to a
you,
country where there's no electricity and there's no windows and they're living in huts and
mm-hmm.
they're trying to figure out how they're going to take care of their children and their transportation as donkey. Go there and figure out. Come back home and you, wow, what a difference, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
So
a
how's
lot of
that?
things. Huh?
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so one of the things, though, obviously, I mean, with Shriners, and that you have to fundraise, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of, I mean, how do you compete in a world where people are getting dragged in so many different directions, for charities or for donations to this or their
Right.
pet whatever issue, their pet issue. How do you compete in that world?
Well, there's a lot of charities out there, and most of them are all worthy
Hmm.
of your money. And there's a competition out there that goes on. I think with Shriners, because their hospital system is getting ready to celebrate their 100th year here in
Right.
a couple of years. There's a large base of people who have been members as Shriners.
Hmm.
There's a large base of families. They've treated over 1.3 million children. And those group of people really want to give back to those who help them, right?
Hmm.
So that's big base. Then I think the next thing, the expert medical care that they provide touches a lot of people, even if they didn't have a firsthand experience, they've seen the results. So, but I have to say, it's a constant job, and all these charities have great donor relation departments that
Hmm.
work at. Media has become a big part of it, TV and
Right.
Facebook, all those things are a huge part of fundraising as well now today.
Excellent. So tell me, going back to your my Shriner's Diary,
Uh-huh.
are there a couple of instances in that book that you just want to share with us? Maybe some really surprising experiences you had, or really like life-changing experiences that are in the diary?
Well, I tell you, as you know, we've talked about healthcare, and
Hmm.
my wife and I are over in the country of Cyprus,
Hmm.
and not a real poor country, but nothing like the United States.
Hmm.
And we had a clinic over there they have for the last 38 years. And this past year we went, and there was a lady that came in there. She had called in and said she had an appointment made for her son, and she was flying in. Cyprus is a small island,
Hmm.
and she was flying in, and she was very determined that we had to see her child, and she was running late. She got there on the last day, and this small lady walked in holding this child, who was nearly as big as her, 5 or 6 years old.
Hmm.
And she handed him off to me, and the little guy just kind of clung to me, and for a strange guy, he just clung to me. And the mother stood before me crying and said, "If you can help my child, you can take my life."
Oh my goodness!
And that hit
Wow.
me like a ton of bricks. And it probably was one of the most touching experiences I've had in my life, to think that a mother not only would do that, but that she had enough respect for what we do
Hmm.
to say that.
Wow.
So that was a life-changing thing for me, and that's why I said earlier. You visit these places and you think you've got something, you got a bad life. You don't have a bad life. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that was really good. I had the opportunity to work with President Carter on some of these
Okay.
projects, and of course, President Carter, I can't imagine a better humanitarian than he is with all the work he's done around the world in eradicating diseases. So that was very interesting to be able to work along with the Carter Center on
Hmm.
some projects. Um, every day in the book it has 1 to 6 or 7 paragraphs, depending on the activity. And
Excellent. Well, I highly recommend people look at it. When did you say it's coming out?
be out on by the end of this month. Supposed to be out by the 24th of June this year.
Excellent. And it's My Shriner's Diary.
Right.
Excellent. All right, Gary. Well, we're bumping up against the end of our time here.
Okay.
Do you want to just tell people a little bit more about yourself, how they can learn more about you?
Yep. So Gary Bergenske, I'm a business owner in the Orlando area. I'm an author and a motivational speaker. I have a website called Gary Motivations,
Yep.
GaryMotivations.com. You can find out a lot about me there, the work I've done, and what I can speak to help try to motivate and encourage your group to get excited about what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic, Gary. And I think the work that you're doing and the books and everything. I think it's a gift to be able to bring this perspective to people. Especially as I said, we live in a world of comparison and people feeling like they don't have enough or whatever. And I think bringing some perspective is always a great thing. It's
It
well
is.
needed. All right. Well, my
I,
name is John Golden, Sales Pop Online Sales Magazine, Pipeline of CRM. Gary, thank you very much for joining us today. Gary Bergenske, and I'll see you all for another expert interview really soon. Thank you.